I recently played a campaign as Finland, trying to get the Perkeletankki achievement. Now Finland, you would think in many other games that starting as a vassal of a kind of backwater country like Russia here would be a bad thing, but actually this is really good because we can, in a bit of a similar way to what I did in the Luxembourg run, we can use that Russia has lots of resources, right? And since Finland is a lot more developed than Russia, we can kind of have an advantage over them that we keep throughout the campaign, so that we have more productive factories and so on. So essentially, what I will try to do in this campaign is to become the industry of Russia, essentially, so that Russia itself produces a lot of natural resources, but Finland produces a lot of industry. Now, Russia does not have a lot of silk, but it does have a lot of wood. So what I will do is I will start to make a furniture industry here. It's important to use your decrees at the start of the game. I guess if you min-max it, really, you want to use the road maintenance one only when you're actually building something in the province. And essentially then also try to make our furniture manufacturers as good as possible. Also other things like tool workshops and eventually steel and motor industries and so on is stuff we will have to get down because Russia will likely not produce enough of it itself. Yeah, I can also say that in laws, I want to start moving towards, just general development, right? So I want to eventually have guaranteed liberties. I definitely do not want censorship because the tax spread, we are, after all, we don't really plan on expanding that much. We're a rather small country, so tax spread is very important to us. Move ideally to elected bureaucrats eventually, but at least to appointed ones at first. Freedom of conscience, and yeah, just general modernization. I will not move all the way to multiculturalism, but I will move at least to one of these two, so that I can absorb more European immigration. So a couple of years down the line, I have started to get a little bit of an industry going. You can see that our economy has grown a bit. It's not that much yet. One thing that happens with these tall countries is that you often get very high amounts of loyalists. So we hardly have any radicals at all at this point. Um, yeah, so we just produce more and more and more furniture here. I don't think we built much of these at all because they just were there to begin with. Um, and yeah, I mean, things are going pretty good. I also changed a couple laws, so now we have guaranteed liberties, and we have a right of assembly. Ideally, we will move to freedom of speech eventually, but you need to have the tech human rights first. So yeah, we have moved to professional army, appointed bureaucrats, freedom of conscience. Not yet away from national supremacy, but yeah, things are going pretty good. And a bit further down the line, we have, this is 10 or 11 years later, we already really have started picking up pace here. So now we are the 16 greatest power in the world, and we have, yeah, we have surpassed Japan and are approaching the Ottoman Empire in GDP. And we have the highest GDP per capita in the world. Our literacy is starting to get quite high. Not that many universities yet, though. Uh, our standard of living is rising quite quickly, and to make to hasten this, essentially, I have very low taxes now. No consumption taxes. We pretty much are just relying on the investment pool. We are not even using all that we are getting from it right there. I think I expanded my construction industries a bit after this. In the laws, I have now moved to racial segregation, and we are working to abolish child labor so we can get even more out of our public schools. And I have also implemented private health insurance that will increase our population growth as it lowers mortality. And this too, of course, lowers mortality. So getting this down pretty quickly, like in 1855, is a really great setup for the rest of the campaign. Russia itself is very unindustrialized. Uh, while we still have a smaller GDP than them, see that little Finland is already like a fourth of like a third of their total economic size, and of the Russian market, we are like a fourth now. One thing I should mention as well is that I did not move away from interventionism as many perhaps would do here, because in this situation, um, Russia will not create its own demand for some goods that we cannot produce ourselves. So say that we wanted sulfur mines, we cannot produce it ourselves, and we can import it, but we really do want Russia to start producing some of their own. So I created a chemical plant and just subsidized it. And you can see that our furniture and tooling industries are starting to come along. And now my steel mills also are a thing. Another thing that is kind of interesting is I, um, I can mention that later, but the way tariffs work is kind of interesting. So now we are 15 years or so further down the line, and we have switched to free trade, which in principle would mean that we would not get any tariffs. Because we're part of the Russian market, we do get quite a bit of income from it. I honestly struggle to find out, exactly how this is distributed, because it's not proportional to GDP, as Russia is collecting more in tariffs than we are, although we have, at this point, far surpassed them. Actually, we are fourth biggest economy in the world at this point. Yeah, approaching Britain. Um, France is really strong in this game. Um, yeah, and we are the 10th greatest power in the world at this point, though we can never reach great power status as long as we are a vassal of Russia's. Um, right now, I am in a bleeding deficit. This is fine. It is not great, but it is fine as long as we resolve the cause of it. Because right now, I am subsidizing the tooling workshops to make sure that they don't collapse and we sustain our living standard and so on. But we need to balance. Yeah, essentially, we need steel and coal to become cheaper, or of course increase the demand of tools for these to become viable again. So yeah, that's essentially what I'm doing. I'm keeping them running while I am building a lot of steel mills. One thing that yeah, if you have a lot of cash reserves in them, then it's fine. You can let them bleed a little bit, but we do not anymore. So this will be very bad for our overall economy if we let them fail. So yeah, our tooling workshops are too big to fail. So we are bailing them out. Yeah, also I have advanced to protected speech to get all of that sweet technology spread, and also moved to proportional taxation now. Not you can't see it, but we are making a lot of money. The economy is in great shape as soon as we get our tooling workshops back on track. Yeah, and moving a bit further into the future, we are now have a really literate populace. At this point, we actually have the biggest GDP in the world. We have not established a single colony. So, yeah, we are still just Finland. We have a really high standard of living. We have some radicals at this point, but not that many. I think that some people got fired from buildings, and that's why it has risen a bit. We have a lot bigger of a population than Finland does, even today in real life. Like this is more than all of Scandinavia today. Um, yeah. So yeah, we are an economic powerhouse, and still, you can see that Russia has not really grown all that much economically. So Russia is essentially still more of a rentier state, while um, we essentially have become the industrial branch of the Russian Empire. We're still in a bleeding deficit right now. It was fine for a while in between here, but yeah, essentially, we have we are subsidizing our industries right now. We don't know, are we not? I thought it was. Yeah, okay, no, it's our synthetics plants we are subsidizing. Yeah, so we essentially need to increase the demand for dye. That's fairly easy to do because you just need to, build glassworks and clothing industries, textile mills. And that's, I think, what I would build a lot of going forward in this campaign. And of course, there was an achievement to collect here in building um, war machine industries and producing tanks, 1,000 a month. And yeah, we are doing that. Although we need to subsidize them for that to happen because we don't quite have the demand for that. Although we have built a lot bigger of an army now than we did used to have. I think at this point our army is a lot stronger than Russia's actually. And not in size, of course, but we beat them so hard in quality that it really doesn't matter. So yeah, Finland is at this point like really an economic bastion in Europe, and we have developed lots of institutions. We have we that has declined actually, but we had a really high population growth. We are a very desirable target to migrate to. Have stabilized our economy, although we still run a little bit of a deficit. And yeah, this was a really fun campaign. I think that this game is better when you don't try to go too far with what would you call it, like generally um, yeah, colonizing and imperializing the rest of the world and fighting a lot of wars and so on. Although you probably do need some colonies to modernize, especially the bigger countries. So yeah, this was a really fun campaign. I got an achievement after it, and at this point, I was just passing old age pension and some social reforms. Uh, there is of course one thing that you probably want to see happen at this point, because at this point it doesn't make sense for Finland to be subordinate to Russia, does it? Like we have like 4 or 5 times their economy. So I tried to break free, but but yeah, the problem is that we were essentially the industrial branch of the Russian Empire, right? So although we end up being the fourth greatest power in the world after breaking free, you see that it absolutely devastates our economy to do so. Uh, yeah, yes, we were down to 18 GDP per capita, but I think we were like above 30 before breaking free. You can go back in the video and check that, and you can see that our industries are doing so incredibly terribly bad. But of course, that's just because we lack the access to the natural resources needed to run this economy right now. So I could have spent a lot of time developing um, more bureaucracy and ports and trade for it at this point. Uh, and ideally, I would be able to, just join the customs union instead with Russia. But yeah, I can't really do that, and that makes this yeah, very painful. So yeah, that was definitely not the right time to go independent. Yeah, it was still a very fun campaign. I would probably go back to the last save instead if I were to continue this. I hope you enjoyed the video. Tell me if there is any campaign you'd like me to see, like me to have a go at, and if there is any achievements that you would like me to go for as well. I think that going forward, I will try to record the videos a bit more as they happen. In this case, yeah. Until then,